CS3 has some pretty significant selection enhancements, and another video here we saw how we can use that quick selection tool to make, well, quick selections. But there's actually a refine edges dialog too that helps us refine our edge selection and make it look better. So let's go ahead and use this photo as an example here. I'm going to go to my quick selection tool and do just that. I'm going to make a very quick selection of the background. Okay, and what's going to happen here is it's going to select some into her hair. So let's zoom in a bit here, and I'm just going to go into this selection. I'm going to hold down my Option key on the Mac, my Alt key on the PC, and I'm going to go around these edges here and just try to bring them back out so they don't get cut off here. Alright, and then we'll go down. You can see here we're getting a little bit jaggy, but we'll just keep going down the line. And there we go. So we got most of it. Now you can see it kind of went a little bit too far, so we'll just bring our selection in just to about there. Okay, so now essentially we've created the selection, and if you look at it, you can kind of tell the edges are going to be a little bit jaggy. I mean, it's not perfect. It's really kind of lumpy along those edges, but that's where Refine Edges comes in. So here's what you do. You go ahead and click on the Refine Edge dialog. And oh, one more thing here. What we want to do is just select her. We don't want to select her from, we don't want to select the background. We want to choose her. So I'm going to go to Select Inverse. And what that'll do is that just selects her, not the background. Now we go into Refine Edges. And the way this works is it opens up a brand new dialog box. And you have a few options at the bottom of how you want to see your edges here. So here's the default. And then here's this quick mask overlay. Here is your edge on a black background, on a white background, or just showing you a channel view, just showing you the white. Okay, so let's go with the black background for this one. And what we're going to do here is start off with the radius. And what the radius does is it tries to look at the edge of the selection and go inside or outside of that selection to try to get any little artifacts that might be missing, any small edges that might be visible or not visible. So as you increase the radius, the best thing to do is go way up and take a look at what it does to your images here. Now in this example here, it's not going to go too far out, okay? But it lets us go out a little bit further from our selection without changing too much of the edge. The contrast says, how jagged do you want this selection edge to be? So when I increase it, if you take a look at these edges, if I zoom in here, you're going to see that the edges get pretty straight, pretty strict, okay? So what I do is I bring that contrast setting down, and what it does is that smooths the edge out a lot better for me. Now smoothing is another setting. A lot of these are settings that we had inside of Photoshop before, but we could never see them visually like we could here inside of the Refine Edge dialog. So you can see here I can actually smooth the edges, because remember how jagged they got along the side of the hair? So I can smooth my edges out here and make it just appear a lot smoother instead of the jagged way we saw before. Feathering. Feathering softens the selection. The best way to see it is crank it up, and see what it does? See how it brings a little halo around? So it's softening the edge of your selection. So I don't really want to soften it that much here. I'd want to soften it just a little. Maybe a pixel or two works for a lot of images, especially if you're trying to bring them off of a background. You just want to feather it by a pixel or two, and that'll give a nice transition. And then finally, contract and expand. It brings in either more of the edge or it brings in less of the edge. All right, so generally a large setting in either direction is not going to work very well, but I will contract here just by a little bit, maybe 2 or 3%, just to bring in that edge a little bit. I'm going to bring my feathering down some as well. Okay, so take a look at your preview. You can see that's what we started with. This was our selection when we started, and this is a selection now. That makes a big impact when you see that. That's the selection I made. This is what we end up with. Huge difference. So I'm going to click OK. It puts a selection around her. I'm going to choose copy, and then let's go over into a different image here, and we'll paste the copied selection. I'm just going to do Command V and paste it, and look at that. I mean, that's pretty big. We would probably have to blur the background because obviously she wouldn't be in focus and the background wouldn't be in focus. So we can come up here to make it more realistic, go to maybe a Gaussian blur, and we can blur this background a little bit here. But I mean, take a look at that. That is a darn good selection for the amount of time that we just spent on it. So there's the Refine Edge dialog for you. It's a huge leap inside of CS3. It doesn't give you more selection options, but what it does is it makes making a good selection easier because you can do these things visually. Before we had CS3, we couldn't do it visually. We were always guessing what feather and smooth and contract would look like. So now we can do it visually, and obviously, as you can see here, it's a very big help.